So in this realm, with everybody's trying to serve everybody, everyone's trying to serve, everybody's trying to knock on the door of business. We've been talking about throughout the conference about business fatigue. So can you imagine 12 different partners, 7 different WIBs, all knocking on the same employer's door asking, hey, do you have any jobs? Do you have any jobs? Do you have any jobs? As a county, we're still looking into the transition of how do we go from job developers to business consultants. And it's a transition that we're trying to make, and we're looking at data to really help us overcome that. Another challenge is amongst ourselves, how do we measure the effectiveness and the return on investment for the work that we do as a collective? So we have a number of challenges given the population that we serve. Our unemployment rate is at 4.8%, slightly lower than our partners in San Francisco, but that's not the true number, because that doesn't really take into account those that are underemployed. It doesn't take into account those that have dropped out of the labor force and just stopped looking. So much like Zoe Baird said this morning during our keynote speech, is we have to be creative in identifying our own opportunities. So we've been very fortunate to have a very forward-thinking new board of supervisors. It happens to be a female majority, 4 women, 1 man. Maybe that has something to do with it. I would like to believe that it is. We haven't seen this kind of change since then, but it also does help that we have the former Secretary of Labor, Hilda Solis, on our board. We also do have a child actress and former Congresswoman Sheila Kuehl. So our board of supervisors is very dynamic and eclectic and very forward-thinking. So one of the ideas was, how do we harness the county's resources to really affect positively economic development? Because in the end, at its core and at its most basic level, economic development is jobs. So how do we use the county's trillions and trillions of dollars in services and buying power to move some of that along? So we looked at cities like San Francisco, Seattle, New York, even our partners at LA City, and looked at local target hire requirements and first source hiring through our system. So if we look at using construction and as a tool for economic development, our partners at LAEDC put together a report recently showing that construction is going to go from 130,000 jobs to 150,000 jobs by the year 2020. So really, how do we take advantage of that, and then how do we help use our system to help meet that demand? So we put together our local target hire requirement program, which requires any capital construction jobs that are both either remediation, brand new capital projects, refurbishments that are over $500,000 to require a 30% best effort. But anything over $2.5 million, it requires a 30% requirement. On top of that, we also implemented our economic development project requirements, which means that any county capital project that has a commercial or retail space connected to it, any of the jobs that are created out of that, we're looking at 50% of those jobs to come specifically from our system. So this is a county trying to use our own county dollars to recycle them to reinvest in the population that we have to serve. And most recently, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about Measure M. So our Metro board, which our board of supervisors also sits on that board, really supported Measure M, which is going to bring in about $120 billion worth of construction projects for transportation. So how do we support that? How do we use our system collectively to really support some of those efforts? So now we have all these jobs that we're helping create, and we know they're going to happen. For example, next fiscal year, the county alone is putting out $875 million worth of capital projects. So we know that's going to mean jobs. So between all of these people operating in the same space, how do we share those jobs? How do we get that information out to them? How do we make sure that we're responsive to business, and actually, instead of becoming cumbersome and affecting their bottom dollar, we're actually positively affecting the way that they do business. So that we're looking at technology for that. We work with the 7 WDB boards. We partnered specifically with our partners at City of LA, who've already taken advantage of Launchpad's technology. So we said, why reinvent the wheel? They're our very good close partners. We fund them in some programming. They fund some of us in some of our programming, and we work really closely together. So we said, why not jump on the same CRM? Including our partners at LADC, who operate our layoff aversion program. They do an excellent job. They're out in the audience. And We really appreciate their work, but we have to find a way for all of us to communicate. So when they have those layoff aversion issues, how do they get that information to us quickly, or vice versa? If we come across some of that in our engagement, how do we communicate that to them and our other partners collectively? So we're looking at the CRM as an opportunity to help us expand those opportunities. So altogether, we really aim to create this sustainable pipeline of talent. So not just this pool of potential talent, but job-ready talent, so that when construction jobs and capital projects get off the ground, we could get that talent and those folks into those jobs quickly, so it doesn't affect them. We're partnering also with labor and the unions, because we know that plays a key role in a lot of the construction projects. So we're also in discussions with them about bringing them on board. So what we're doing we're trying to really do is look at technology to help us really connect, mobilize, and deliver these services to business. Ultimately, they don't care what we had to do to get these people job ready. If I'm an employer, I could care less if you were homeless, I could care less if you're an opportunity youth. All I care about is that day one when you show up to the office or you show up to the work site, you're job ready and you're ready to go. So how do we get those people that are job ready to them very quickly at the speed of business versus at the speed of the county and the speed of a bureaucracy? So right now what we're trying to do is learn from our friends using Launchpad. We're in the early stages of implementation, so we're still bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about this process. We still haven't been beaten down by the system, so we still truly believe this is going to work, and it has to work because we have no choice, one, and two is this is our opportunity to work regionally with our partners to share in the jobs and the opportunities for all of our clients. So even though there's 7 workforce development boards, all of them are county constituents. So in the end, we're still responsible for them. We still operate those safety net programs that if they're not unemployed, they need to get stabilized. We're still responsible for them. So on our end, we're doing our share to try to find and build this really collective response to what's happening out in LA County.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right. So that ends the overview. So what we're going to do now, we're going to continue. We're going to have a panel discussion where we're going to ask Rafael and David a couple of questions. And after that, I'm going to turn it over to the audience. So everybody in the audience, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you'd like to chat with David or Rafael about, feel free to ask at the time. All right. So the first question that we have for you two gentlemen, David, I'd like for you to go first on this one. So what would you say was the state of collaboration before you all launched this project? And how would you say that it's improved or has not improved now? And where do you see the state of collaboration going and moving on to in the future?
Good question. The state of collaboration when we first began the project, to be honest, was very fragmented. It was believed that departments and groups talked to each other and that they shared participants and job seekers and so on and so forth. But once we started to peel back the onion, we saw that that wasn't the case. That this particular group or this particular department had their way in which they did their work, and that was the way that it was going to be. Sitting down and talking with the different groups, the heads of the different groups, we were able to kind of get a better understanding as to why this was historically the case. What could we do in terms of offering up a solution or a different way in which to do this type of business? And hopefully lead to that state in which everyone was on one system, sharing information, sharing resources, so on and so forth. We also decided to step back, and instead of trying to conquer the all 18 departments at once, it was decided by the Office of Economic and Workforce Development that we would start internally, and that we would work within our piece of the organization and create an infrastructure in which there was collaboration amongst folks within our department, collaboration with the CBOs in which we worked with, collaboration with the employers, collaboration with the job seekers or participants that were trying to find work. Once we were able to map that out to see what that was going to look like, it led to a kind of piecing off of the full project and kind of where it is right now. And we're in a pilot stage in which we started with our first source employment, and listing all of those jobs in one location, tracking those job seekers and the number of interviews that they had that led to a job, tracking those who were hired and getting those proofs of employment or employment verifications to the CBO so that they could get credit for it. And then we took it to the next stage and we started with our CBO partners who ran our career centers and started working with them and asking how can you six work together to, one, have a participant pool, and then two, transfer or move that participant pool through wherever the jobs are. And once we started having the conversations about that, it led to the pilot where we are right now and kind of the success that we're having.
All right, thank you, sir. And Raphael, same question for you. Can you tell us how collaboration was across the county prior to launching the project? And I know you are still in the early stages, so we'll just say, how do you see it improving as we move forward?
Well, it started with our partners at LA City, who've already started implementing the use of the CRM. We work collectively with them every year together. We provide summer jobs to over 20,000 youth in LA County between the two of us. Again, we fund some of their programming, and it just makes sense. The two biggest WDBs in a pool of 7 WDBs makes sense to partner. I'm really excited about this opportunity because it's not just an ask that we're doing of our other partners. We don't just have a stick, we have a carrot, which is jobs. And what more can you want than us giving you and handing you the jobs and the opportunities for your clients? So I honestly don't foresee some big challenges other than the excitement of getting it off the ground and getting there.
All right, I like that. I like your optimism.
And I'm gonna hold on to it. I have no choice.
All right, second question. Raphael, we'll go with you first this time, and then we'll go to you, David. So, we know you're in the early stages of planning for the project. So can you tell us about some of the things that are involved with you and your team for the early stages of planning?
Yeah, so we have to, one of the main things is sitting down and identifying all the aspects of the work that we do that will benefit from this project, including identifying who all our partners are through various sectors. Being that LA County is so huge, we had to divide LA County into 8 workforce development regions. Each region within itself has its own unique characteristics and challenges, and each one has its own strategy that we need to implement. Within those regions, it overlaps with existing WDBs and other educational partners. So we have to identify, break it down little by little, and identify, okay, who are the partners in this region? How do we bring them together? How do we collaborate? The beauty of WeO, it forced us in a way to actually have those conversations that we haven't had in the past, even amongst ourselves. So breaking down those identifying those gaps and those opportunities has been the biggest and most challenging piece of this. But again, that also allows us to identify easy successes that we didn't know existed before. In particular, when you look at sector strategies, not every WDB is positioned to be the lead in any particular sector, and that's not a bad thing. So we have to look at ourselves and identify, okay, as LA County, which sectors are we best positioned, given the areas that we represent, the resources that we have, where are we best positioned to lead, and where are we best situated to support. And through digital communication is the best way that we're going to be able to either support or lead. And so we're looking at this space to create that environment where we could collaborate and cooperate with our partners, in particular when we're trying to address sector strategies.
All right, thank you, sir. David, so same question for you, only we're going to change it a little bit differently. I know you guys are further along in the project, so if you can, start by taking us back, to the beginning of the planning stages for this project, and then talk about some of the challenges that you guys experienced, after you planned it out and as you're going through it. Can you tell us about some of those experiences as well?
Sure. So in the beginning, when this was first talked about, it was to create this solution for all of the 18 departments within San Francisco's workforce system. And it was discovered very early on that may have been too big based on the time frame in which they were looking to have this happen. So after some strong negotiations, some realistic timelines, some evaluating of kind of a process flow and where we were looking to go, it was agreed that maybe if we start with one department, look at what that department can do, is trying to do, and hoping for this tool to do, we can then replicate that amongst other workforce departments within the city. Then the determination was, which department do we start with? Well, since it was kind of brought to the table by the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, we were, for lack of a better term, the guinea pig as to which we were going to try to create this cohesive, communicative environment in which CBO partners and employers and job seekers were given this real-time information, that everyone had one place in which they could go to find out everything from when a Microsoft class was being offered to when a job fair was being offered to who was hired by or who is hiring for local hire within San Francisco, all in one place. Remind me, what else did you want me to?
And I just wanted to, what, can you give us some experiences that you had as you were going through the process?
Sure, sure. So as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of pushback from the CBO partners because basically, once you let a participant out